I've restarted this video 3 times because, frankly, I don't know what to tell you the best HT is in 2023. And there's a couple of issues, and I'm just going to come out swinging right from the top. A lot of the cheap radios, case in point, these talk pods that came out this year, are attractive. The companies that produce them reached out to YouTubers early and often and got them in front of a lot of people. The problem, and a lot of good channels on YouTube pointed this out, and I certainly did the testing myself as well, pointed out that they have spurious emissions and that they are not suppressing their harmonics. And I made a video all about where I took this radio, went around town, quarter mile, half mile from my home, transmitted, and I was transmitting on other frequencies, the harmonics of this radio. I'm actually recording both the second harmonic and the third harmonic. So transmitting on 146.580, we're going to see it on the second harmonic and third harmonic, hypothetically with the better antenna.
Kilo India 6, November Alpha Zulu. This is a test on the adventure frequency, 146.580, Kilo India 6, November Alpha Zulu, test. Kilo India 6, November Alpha Zulu. This is a test on the adventure frequency, 146.580, Kilo India 6, November Alpha Zulu, test.
So a lot of these companies are coming out with these radios, very inexpensive. They work, but you're not seeing the invisible nature of your frequencies. Your RF is going out on adjacent frequencies. This is a violation of the FCC rules. This is a non-standard radio. Well, how'd they do it? Why is this being sold? Well, because this is being advertised as a GMRS radio, specifically for the UHF portions of the frequencies close to, adjacent to the amateur radio 70 centimeters band. The problem is the firmware on this thing allows you to transmit on 2 meters. It actually allows you wider than the amateur radio 2-meter spectrum space, which is where we have a lot of FCC rules regarding spurious emissions. TalkPod is not alone, and I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. They actually did send me a second one after my first video came out talking about the spurious emissions, and they sent me the second one, and I did review it, and guess what? It also has very similar problems. But I have other radios that also had issues this year. We had the TID radio, which this was the first one they sent me. This one not only didn't meet power output standards, but also had some spurious emissions problems as well, not meeting the FCC rules. I can pleasantly say this radio, though, the second one they sent me, is in line. And the same went with this Wouxun. This Wouxun actually was kind of one of my top picks, but the first one I got sent had issues. This is a quad band radio with cross band repeat, meaning you can put this on 6 meters, transmit into this on 6 meters, and it will output on 1.25 meters. Test, Kilo India 6, November Alpha Zulu. A really cool radio, not cheap though. This is like a middle of the road, mid-tier to upper tier to handheld. Really, really nice, but a little bit of manufacturing QA issues that happened here. Now, both companies, TID Radio and Wouxun, have done what I think is the right thing, made changes to the radios, re-released them, and now people are getting the good ones. But here's my concern. TID Radio is a company that I really don't have that much involvement with, and I just randomly got the first radio, and they asked me to make a video on it. And I said, sure, and then I tested it and shared the results with them, and they said, oh, don't publish those results, let us send you a new radio. Well, I can't really do that either, because once you've given it to me, the cat is out of the bag. You presented this to me, you gave this to me. It's my job to kind of tell the community about it. Now, I think you are doing the right thing and you're trying to fix it. And like I said, the new radio they sent me, I literally had to mark them because they're identical. And I wrote behind the battery packs too on the radio so I wouldn't confuse them, because I don't want to transmit with this radio. So there were a number of radios like this. And unfortunately, the last one is a really kind of blow to my gut because I've actually really been liking it. The new Quancheng UVK6. This is the current sweetheart radio. People are making all kinds of videos on these. There is a firmware that you can actually update just by plugging in a USB cable and going to a website. It'll actually update the firmware off of the website if you're on Windows in some cases. This radio has all kinds of possibilities. It'll listen all the way down into 10 meters, which is pretty cool. It also has a little PAN adapter that you can side load with this firmware changes, which is really, really awesome. And I would love to tell you to go buy this thing because it's like sub $40, but it too doesn't meet spurious emission standards. It has the harmonics that aren't suppressed. So, man, it's really tough for me because I see all these channels out there that are making all these cool videos telling people all these fun things that these radios do, but my conscience won't allow me to say, yeah, you should go buy this because it's a really cool radio, even though it is. I don't know what to do here, guys. What is the best ham radio of 2023? Well, it's likely radios that you already own. Or there's a couple of new ones from Japanese companies that choose to follow the FCC rules that I have no problem supporting, and I will talk about those shortly. But I really did need to take some time here right up front and say, we have a bit of a problem here, and they have gotten better for things like the Baofeng, which has been around quite a while. The UV5R is $18 on Amazon. I can recommend this radio. They're meeting their spurious emission standards. I've bought multiples of these in the last year, and every one of them was okay if you bought it off of Amazon. I will tell you, the link for this is in the description, so if you'd like to get yourself a clean Baofeng, go check it out. Also, you can get the GT5R, which is pretty much the same thing, from Radioddity, which I will also drop the link for that as well. I can recommend that because it meets FCC standards. So am I being a bit of a FUD over all of this? Probably. But at the same time, there has to be a position held, and if it needs to be me to be the one to do it, that the manufacturers start to realize that we're not going to accept these bad radios, then that's just what I'll do. I'm not trying to make some large political gesture here, but I think it does need to be said that we won't accept inferior products because, again, what's happening when you're transmitting on a radio like this with spurious emissions? Well, you're firing off your RF on all those other frequencies. Not very efficient for that fundamental frequency you're trying to make a contact on, wouldn't you think? Yes, of course. So let's talk about my favorite handheld radios in 2023. Cheapest radio. I'm skipping the Baofeng. I already mentioned it. Links in the description if you want a Baofeng. You know where to find Baofengs. You don't need me for this. Baofeng meets FCC standards. Good for you. Sub $100. I wish I could be more unique, but it is the FT4X for its size. I love the size. For its sound quality, it's pretty good.
Kilo India 6 November Alpha Zulu antenna test.
Good, and just the simplicity of its use. This would be a great radio for a first timer. It's roughly, again, something that's easy to EDC if you wanted to carry a radio for yourself. Yeah, gets high marks for me on that one. Slight nod, just a ever so slight little nod to the DJ VX50 from Alinco. Alinco is one of those quirky amateur radio companies that in the past it was way quirkier than it is today, but I still really like it. When I can give them a nod, I really like to do so. I made a video comparing these two out in the field, so if you'd like to go watch that video, it's linked in the description or in the card, so check it out.
Kilo India 6 November Alpha Zulu antenna test.
The Alinco sounds like it might actually have the loudest speaker out of the whole group. Middle of the road radios are anywhere from like $200, I'd say, or north of $100, sub $350, right? So I'd throw that KG-Q10H in there. I mentioned that they had some QA issues on their release, but I think they've largely fixed those problems. And if you go to buytwowayradios.com, I have a link in the description. It's my understanding that they're only shipping the improved radios with the solutions to the issues that they had. I also reviewed this first with the dirty one, if you will. Features are great. And then I did a follow-on video with the black one behind me over there. Green's just better on camera, I think. And I documented that, yeah, they did improve things considerably. So go check that out if you're curious. This is my middle-of-the-road favorite radio, and the nod really came from the USB-C power that you have with this and it being quad band. There are very, very, very few handhelds, none that are new, that are quad band in the handheld space, which is great. Great news for hams. Back to Yaesu with two middle-of-the-road standards. The FT60, this is literally my first radio. I swapped the battery pack on this. They're still making battery packs of this bad boy. So it is old technology, but I'm telling you what, if you give this to a new ham, they're going to be set for quite a while. I thoroughly enjoyed using this radio. Still do. I think it sounds fantastic. Second is the VX6. This is quickly becoming my kind of just grab-and-go standard radio. I put the little swivel point attachment on it, which means I can slap it onto a backpack strap and it'll kind of swing freely. It's great. It's a submersible radio. It is tri-band, which is great. Not many 1.25 meter radios exist in this space anymore, and it's tiny. It's really, really small, and the batteries last pretty well with it. I've used this in the past with my Mobi-linked TNC, and I've had a lot of fun doing WinLink email with it, or packet, over packet radio, and APRS with this. That's something that you can just take with you wherever you go, and is really robust. Link is in the description. I am not an affiliate for this radio. I just like the Yaesu handhelds. I think they do a good job. Now, if we breach middle of the road, mid-tier handhelds, we get into, I don't know what to call it, high tier, upper middle class. This is the upper middle class of radios. The Yaesu FT5D got a lot of discounts in 2023. There was a massive discount for Hamvention, and then there was other really good discounts for Black Friday this year. If you happen to pop on this radio at what I believe was $350 at Hamvention, you, sir or madam, scored a deal. That is an absolute great deal on a really, really good radio. This is a fantastic outdoor radio, an everyday radio, one of the few handhelds that does APRS and does it well, and recommended by me. At $350, even up to $450, I would say this is a steal. And the second of the upper middle class is the ID50. Truly a radio that came out in 2023. We saw this and got our hands on it at Hamvention with Ray Novak, and I gotta tell you, I didn't get it at the time. I was like, well, why would I mess with this when I already have the ID52? And it isn't until you actually start putting them side by side with each other and comparing the sizes that you start going, interesting, very, very interesting. And a value aspect is they use the same battery packs. So if you have a 705, an ICOM 705, an ID52, or an ID50, even the ID51, the old ICOM 70 centimeter handhelds, they all use the same batteries. It's kind of like Yaesu with the FT line. Great, absolutely wonderful. This radio is interesting, right? So if you compared it to its older brother, which is bigger, right? Older brother's a little bit bigger here. Older brother has Bluetooth, right? Built in. This doesn't. Meaning you have to connect this to whatever it is you're going to communicate with. So if you want to do something like DRATs, or you want to tunnel through for doing some kind of a digital mode connection, or connecting it to the Android app via the tablets or your laptop or your whatever, you have to use a USB cable. But what separates these two apart, and why this has quickly become my kind of grab and go travel radio, is it's USB-C. This is one of the first Japanese radios that has gone USB-C. A move that I assume all radios will be doing in the future, even Japanese radios, but this is the first benchmark of that, and its size makes it really easy to carry. Couple that with the standard thing that I like in all the ICOM VHF, UHF operating radios that does D-Star is it uses its GPS to point to the repeaters that you could potentially use based off of your geographic area. So preload an SD card, throw it in there, load those repeaters onto the radio, and it'll use its location to determine which repeaters you are in range to. You can just talk on wherever you're at, and it updates itself. It'll even scan that list, and as you move across the country, it'll update the scanning for just the repeaters you should be able to hit. Now, it didn't come out in 2023, but we are expecting the release of the Kenwood THD75 pretty soon. I'm holding in my hands the THD72, which was one of my first really expensive handhelds that I purchased back in 2010. I don't even remember. When did this come out? Anyway. And then the D74. These radios are different enough that justifies owning both of them, although technically nothing really justifies owning both of them, in that the D72 is full duplex, which means I can listen on the 70 centimeter band while I transmit on the 2 meter band. This is a very attractive radio for satellite communications. It's one of the reasons why this radio remains so popular and kind of discussed in the zeitgeist of amateur radio, is that very particular niche of satellite amateur radio. If it weren't for that full duplex capability, it would be outshined by the TH-D74. Take everything you like with the D72, put it in a new radio, call it the D74, give it Bluetooth, so you can actually do serial over Bluetooth. You don't need to connect this to your laptop, but you can use this as a TNC. By the way, both the TH-D72 and D74 have a true TNC built into them, which is a terminal node controller, meaning you can connect your computer directly into this and you can send commands through this radio into the RF and out into the ether. The Yaesu FT5 will not do that. There are very few handhelds that actually have TNC capability other than the Kenwoods. That's truly what makes them one of the most unique handhelds. Now, both of these radios are true APRS radios, the best iteration of APRS, except for one, which I'll probably wrap things up with. This radio is the bee's knees of handhelds, if you will. The only downside of this, the only downside for me, is that they dropped the full duplex to go with a digital mode. In this case, D-Star, which is, I like D-Star as much as I like Yaesu System Fusion. I like both those more than DMR, but that's a topic for another show. This is probably the best radio. It continues to be the number one radio, the radio that I would say is the best ham radio handheld. It's expensive. It's discontinued. We're waiting on the D75. Rumors of prices of the D75 go up as high as $600. That's speculation. I can't confirm or deny any of that. But regardless, still one of the better radios if you can find them. Now, in that same window area is the ID52. And what's really cool, I think ICOM should be congratulated in producing two similar radios, very similar, to let the consumer decide if they want to pay more for a larger, brighter color screen, different capabilities like Bluetooth, which really doesn't exist in the ID50, and some other things that make it a bit different. Unique, but different, and I love that. You can save a couple $100 if you go with the ID50 over the ID52. ID52 is a fantastic radio. Pound for pound, ounce for ounce, when we did our live testing with this, the audio quality was, I believe, I think everyone pretty much agrees that this had some of the best audio quality both in transmit and receive.
Kilo India 6 November Alpha Zulu testing the ICOM ID52. This is at high power, Kilo India 6 November Alpha Zulu. Kilo India 6 November Alpha Zulu transmitting on 70 centimeters with the ICOM ID52. High power, Kilo India 6 November Alpha Zulu.
On Tuesday, November
Now,
1st, these were the
here's
conditions
the
along
speaker
southern
output.
California coast. Across the Southern California waters,
Pretty loud.
at East Santa Barbara and Louis, winds were west at 14 knots.
Which, if that's what you do with ham radio, which some would argue you probably should be considering that kind of stuff and caring about that, this one's pretty good. All right, so if you talk about handhelds and digital modes, this is the radio I spent the most time doing digital modes with. My Motorola radio, which I still haven't made a video on. I don't know how to make a video on this yet. This is the XTS 5000 that I purchased off of eBay. This is a refurbished radio. It is tough as nails, monoband, UHF, sounds fantastic on P25, great battery life, an absolute chonk though in every other way. I had a lot of fun with this. This is definitely an honorable mention. One of my most fun experiences probably playing around was just getting this up and running, hanging out with Shane, kind of having him show me the ropes on Motorola, and playing around with its CPS software, which I have to say is not as scary as I thought it would be. So yeah, had fun with the Motorola. How do I even bring up this radio again and explain my feelings about it? If you watched my favorite things of 2023, you inevitably saw this little guy, the Pico APRS. This largely was one of, if not my most favorite radios of 2023. This thing is just amazing. There's nothing like it on the market in any case. Not a handheld, not a mobile, not a doingy dongle for your laptop, whatever. Nothing exists like this. There's nothing this size that does as much as this does. There are plenty of things you can add on to a simple handheld to make it do what this does, but there's nothing this size that does what this does. I was blown away when I got my hands on this, and I continue to enjoy it every time I pick it up. It's intuitive. For people like me that like doing packet radio and APRS, this is the jam. And I was successful with this. When I gave it a proper antenna, I was pretty much always able to get my beacons out unless I was in a complete dead zone. So for you APRS enthusiasts, you're probably looking at this going, 1 watt? We can't do anything with that. Au contraire, most of the time, the issues that you experience with APRS is almost always related to antenna and where you are trying to beacon from than the power output. That's why so many people say mobile 50 watt APRS is best, because that extra power makes your consistency rate go up considerably. But if you're going to be using an HT, 1 watt to 5 watt is an appreciable difference. It's not that different, though you can't make some work with even something tiny like this. So what does this do? For those of you that have never seen this before, you're looking at this thing that I can eat. Literally, I've held it in my mouth before, and it doesn't taste very good, but it will fit. All right, so what's the right way to wrap up this video? Well, it's probably make sure you post your favorite radio handheld from 2023 in the comments below. What did I miss? I'd love to hear it. Also, make sure you go subscribe if you haven't already. I'd really appreciate it. So consider this a challenge for all the companies that produce radios in 2024. Make sure that you're at least trying to hit the FCC requirements with regards to spurious emissions, because a lot of us are out there testing these radios, and hey, there's nothing we'd like to do more than give you a seal of approval. Until I see you again, or you see me again, I'm Josh KI6NAZ. Have a wonderful holiday season, and I'll talk to you later. 73.